Good evening, and welcome to the decision session for the Executive Member for the Environment and Climate Change. Everybody who's on the call, welcome this evening. Weather's got a bit colder, but hopefully it'll get a bit brighter before the weekend. And welcome anybody who's watching at home. So without further ado, we'll go through the agenda. It's a short agenda this evening. Declarations of interest. Apparently that's just me, so there aren't any. Second part, approval of the minutes. The minutes seem to be a fair recognition of what was happened last time. Any comments, anybody? No? Right, that's through. So then we're on to public participation. We have two public speakers this evening, Robert Gordon and Councillor Rosie Baker. So if I invite Robert to speak. Robert, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I will be addressing the agenda item on waste. My name is Robert Gordon and I am a member of the York Green Party. I'm 24 years old and deeply concerned for my future if we fail to appropriately address the ongoing climate emergency. The changes to our waste system in York and the purchasing of new waste vehicles provides an ideal opportunity for the Council to future-proof our waste environment service in the city. Unfortunately, the unambitious report presented today has no indication that it will. Instead of taking a proactive and innovative approach to protect the environment for future generations, it encourages more waiting for a government that has time and time again failed on environmental issues, waiting to tackle the very pressing issue of food waste, and waiting to increase the items we can easily recycle. Waiting that is symptomatic of why we are facing this unprecedented man-made environmental crisis in the first place. If, as the report suggests, curbside food waste collections will put too much financial strain on the council, then this needs to be appropriately researched and costed so that the decision can be justified to residents. The report itself emphasises the need to explain the rationale for any methodology pursued, but it is unclear to me how the council's reasoning could be explained without comparing the costs and carbon savings of various options, including those that include curbside food waste collections. Around £20 billion worth of food and drink is wasted annually, and to not address this at all would be foolish. Similarly, the report suggests not increasing the range of plastics that can be collected and recycled from the curbside, as it is apparently unclear what impact the government's plastic deposit return scheme will have on household recycling. I think it is very unlikely that this one scheme will mean that the council is let off the hook for curbside plastic recycling. Indeed, even the government's National Resource and Waste Strategy emphasises that all local authorities will be legally required to collect a range of plastics, including food pots and trays, from 2023. Why wait when we could do this now? Finally, I note the report today is merely for deciding options to consider when developing the methodologies for waste collections. Anything decided today doesn't necessarily mean the council will have to introduce curbside food waste collections or increase the range of recyclable materials, but to not even investigate this further would be counterproductive. We need to ensure our waste service and new fleet is fit for purpose and future-proof, and we cannot do that if we don't look to a system that reduces waste and increases recycling. I ask that the Executive Member for the Environment take these comments into account and encourage methodologies to be developed that consider curbside food waste collections and increasing the range of materials the council can collect.
15 seconds, Robert.
These materials shouldn't be limited to plastics and should include the likes of small electronics, textiles, batteries and Tetra Pak, all of which other councils in the UK can and do recycle. Thank you again for letting me to speak on this issue, and I look forward to seeing an improvement in the Waste and Environment Service that better protects and preserves the environment for my generation and generations to follow.
Many thanks, Robert, and your comments will be taken into account during our discussion. So our next public speaker is Councillor Rosie Baker. Rosie, you know that you have 3 minutes, so can we start now, please?
Thank you, Councillor Widdowson. Yes, thanks for allowing me to speak today. And unsurprisingly, quite a few of the things I'm saying are in agreement with the last speaker. I'm really pleased that we are looking to renew and improve the waste and recycling service, and the replacement of the trucks to include electric-powered vehicles is a huge win for tackling the climate emergency. from a vehicular point of view. I'm really pleased to talk about our zero waste to landfill policy when people ask me about recycling in York. But I do always have to follow that up with explaining about Allerton, and however brilliant the power that it provides for many, many homes, it does, you cannot deny, also emit harmful pollutants and require us to keep producing waste when, as Robert has just said, we do need to reduce the waste and recycle more. So, you know, again, I do find it quite disappointing that with no sort of commitment to looking into more options and investigating and researching the real possibilities that there might be to perhaps do a separate food waste collection one day, or to increase the amount of recyclables that we collect on the curbside, it does seem unambitious. Now, I know that it might not be feasible to suddenly start a separate food waste collection, but I'm really, really pleased that the work that you are doing in order to find ways to reduce the problem of surplus food and edible surplus food, that's fantastic. But there's a huge amount of non-edible, all the compostables, that more and more residents ask me, why aren't we collecting it and doing something separate with it, which is going to add value and also save the council more money. And finally, on behalf of my residents as well in Micklegate, I also wanted to welcome the extension of garden waste collections. That's fantastic to extend that, but we also need to look at the streets that aren't getting those collections at all. A couple of years ago, residents in my ward had a petition presented to the council, to a decision session just like this, saying that they really do want to look at how they can have garden waste collections as well. So in summary, I would just ask you to perhaps go against some of the recommendations of the report and actually encourage officers to look into more of the benefits of separate collections for food waste, and do more feasibility on increasing the range of recyclables. And yes, please extend green bin collections to inner city wards where there is need and people have asked for it. So thank you very much. Goodbye.
Many thanks, Councillor Baker. Your comments will be noted and taken into our discussion. Many thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so on to the next item, which is the waste report update. So, James, I'll hand over to you to lead this discussion.
Okay.
This presentation.
Thank you. So the report in front of you responds to an exec decision in October 2019 to request a review of waste. And this report considers recycling performance and seeks to establish the scope of a review. COVID and our response has delayed the response, so apologies that this has taken a while to come before you. But before we replace our recycling vehicles, we need to consider any changes to recycling, as that impacts on the type of vehicles that we order. Any review also needs to consider central government's waste and resources strategy and the fact that they may mandate and fund councils to collect food waste. In a similar way, they've indicated that they may impact on plastic producers by limiting certain amounts of plastic, and they may also introduce a plastic deposit scheme. Trying to design a system of collection around that is really difficult, because we could order vehicles that collect things that then are no longer available. So until that clarity emerges from central government, Officer advises it's not wise to include food or plastic now, but is absolutely an option for the future. Under the current arrangements, the council does not commingle generally its waste. It does commingle a very small amount of waste, usually when vehicles are broken down. This is then separated and recycled, but it does result in a lower product, especially for paper and card. So we're also excluding, or proposing to exclude from the review, a model which mixes all recycling. It's less likely to be recycled locally, and it causes problems, as I say, with the recycle at value. However, a system where some element of separation could be utilised that preserves the value and ensures it's recycled locally could be considered. Obviously, it's in the council's interest to increase recycling. Not only is it absolutely the right thing to do for our environment, but the disposal of waste costs much more than the disposal of recycling. The review therefore considers 3 ways to increase recycling, one of which is to educate our residents more and carry on with the current system of collection. The second option is to increase capacity for residents, so giving them greater capacity in new containers and making it easier for residents to recycle. So focusing on the materials we collect now, but giving them more capacity and making it easy as possible. Or the third option, as you've heard some of the speakers talk about tonight, is to increase the range of materials, recognising that the suggested scope specifically excludes food waste and increasing the range of plastics. But ultimately, that's your decision tonight. Finally, if you agree with the proposals, we'll prepare models against those three options that I've outlined. And the suggestion is that they're referred to Economy and Place Scrutiny Committee to review the options and recommend a way forward. So that's what's in the report before you tonight.
Always helps if you take yourself off mute. Many thanks for that, James. It's a really clear report, and I think it's a fantastic time for us to be doing it so that we replace our waste vehicles, two of which are now wandering around the city as thunder trucks using electricity through our fair city, with the vehicles that we require. All of the points that you make in the report are absolutely pertinent. We've got to watch for the financial impact. So I hear what our external speakers said, but my understanding is that the cost of collecting food across the city as a separate service is at least £2.5 million. And if the government are writing a paper and are going to fund it, it would be sensible to wait until they fund it rather than the taxpayers of York having to pay for that.
I think
so
just on, yeah, sorry, go on. No,
so I agree with leaving food waste out of it.
Yeah, all I was going to say on food waste is food waste is recovered at Allerton Park and it's put into an anaerobic digester. So food waste is not, we deal with it. We're not clear yet whether the way we deal with food waste and recover it and put it through an anaerobic digester will or won't be acceptable under the government's new guidance. It may be acceptable, it may be a way forward, and they say you don't need a separate collection. The challenge with food waste is that, generally speaking, participation levels are not that great at the moment where there are trials. Really, for food waste collections, you want a weekly collection. We don't currently have a vehicle that visits every week, so we need to think about if and when food waste is mandated, how we could collect it. So we will take that into account. We're not ignoring it and burying our head in the sand. We will think about it as we develop models.
No, absolutely agree with you. But one of the points that you very well made there that I keep forgetting to tell people is that we do recover all the organic waste at Allerton Park. It does go into an anaerobic digester and it does produce enough energy to power 40,000 homes. So we may not, as is in the rest of my life, have the perfect solution, but we've got a very, very good one. So I think that works well. The aim is to drive up recycling rates. So I hear about the communications, and I'm glad to hear about other areas are being sought in terms of capacity. And I hear what we're saying about scrutiny. The only thing that I would add into this is that we really do need to bring our residents on board, so that we need to do something about resident communication, resident consultation. So when the paper goes to scrutiny, so that they can look at the various different options that you as the experts come up with, we've got that factored in as well.
Yes, I should have said there's a suggested delegation in this about the decision to consult. If scrutiny do recommend an option, there's a delegation to talk to yourself and then to embark on a consultation with the city to see if it's something that would work for the city.
Fantastic. I'm hoping that's you talking to me, not me talking to myself. It's just the way you worded it was like going even battier than I already am. Okay, so I agree with the recommendations in the report. There is a formal set of words because I always get this bit interesting, don't I? So what do I need to say? Is it I accept the recommendations in the report? Yep. Oh, right, so I accept the recommendations in the report and I look forward to seeing the report come in front of scrutiny.
Excellent.
Okay, I think, unless I have no urgent business, does anybody else have any urgent business? Okay, in which case the meeting is closed. Many thanks for your help.